I have had a cold, and it has gone to my chest. And I'm fine, but my voice is a little ragged.
We all benefit from it.
And
the sultriness.
Because of having this cold, I had to miss out on a friend's dinner the other night, which meant that I stayed home by my lonesome and finally got around to watching The Batman.
Oh,
I can do it. I feel like I can probably do a little bit more of a Batman.
That's right.
Batman voice.
Wait, the one with Pattinson?
Yes, with Robert Pattinson.
Yes, great.
And Cat Lady.
It was one of those that I had. It's just one of those movies that kind of fallen in between the cracks of being a father of young children.
Mm.
But I loved it. It was well worth the wait, I thought.
It is quite good.
I'm a big fan of in the past, I haven't read any in a long time, but of the Detective Comics line of Batman comics. And that's very much what this felt to me, as in a little more detective work.
Oh, it's super noir, right?
Very noir.
And the world was huge and just so many people, and it felt very cluttered, like real.
It was honestly, and this is no shade to the Nolanverse movies, but it was Gotham had the most Gotham feel to it.
Yeah.
Since I think the Tim Burton movies.
Like this place is a shithole. Like,
yeah.
It did.
But it also it had a character. Like it was not just kind of Gothic-y buildings, like a more Gothic New York.
Right.
It felt like it was kind of its own character. Yeah. Which Gotham kind of has to be.
Right. I mean, Gotham.
But I thought Pattinson did phenomenal, and I can't wait to see the next one. I thought everybody was phenomenal. Freaking Paul Dano. Mm-hmm. Paul Dano, much like the other Paul Rudd.
They're
ageless.
They're super. Oh, they are. I was like,
what's
he about to say? They're both super funny.
No, they're just ageless, except that it's weird because Paul Dano still has that baby face.
Yes.
Yeah. Which makes him the most unnerving villain.
Truly. Yes. No, he was spot on, and the way that they kind of made the Riddler, brought him into the internet age with the kind of the
QAnon. Yeah. Oh my God.
Conspiracy 4chan dude. Brilliant.
Yeah, I actually watched it again too recently, the night before the election, which was probably a bad idea. Just thinking of all of the heat lead, the political upheaval and all. I mean, it's disturbing. Actually, it's way more disturbing than I remembered it being. And even Heath Ledger's performance is standalone, and I thought that was disturbing, but the Batman, this one feels more disturbing altogether.
Well, one thing that's kind of ironic, because I don't think that you would think about this when you're thinking about Robert Pattinson, but this is definitely the most violent Batman.
Yeah. It is actually.
From the first moment, and this was in the trailers, so you'd seen it before, but from the first moment that he, attacks those dudes at the subway exit, and the leader of that gang steps up to Batman and throws a punch, and then he hits him so many times.
Yeah.
He hits him way more times than is necessary to knock this dude out.
Yeah.
He just keeps hitting him. Even when he's down on the ground, he hits him a few more times.
Yeah.
And it's just you can really feel the rage and the just I am partially doing this because I want to hurt bad people.
Yeah. He's okay, he's actually not okay.
It's it's the I am vengeance thing that he kills. Yeah, it's and I loved that portrayal.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch the deleted scenes with the Joker?
No.
So the
only Joker scene I saw was the one that's there in the movie.
Yeah.
Unless they added that, because I was streaming it on HBO. So.
Yeah, I didn't think it was in the movie. Wow, maybe they kept it
Maybe
in
they
there.
cut it back in.
There's
Yeah,
like a
there is
5-minute Joker scene that's actually meant to be tucked away inside of it, where he's like going to ask the Joker to like, how do I get this guy, kind of thing.
Oh, I see. No, it wasn't that. It was like
a teaser.
when the Riddler, spoiler alert, Riddler's in Arkham, and his plan has fallen apart. Even though it kind of didn't really fall apart, it just didn't go as far as he hoped it would.
Yeah,
The seawall's still blown up. Gotham is flooded.
Yeah.
But he's freaking out, and his the cell next door is the Joker, and they talk back and forth.
Yes.
It's never explicitly said, but obviously it's the Joker.
Yeah. No, I remember that scene, but there is a deleted scene where Batman goes and talks to him to ask advice, and you see Joker's face. It's played by I can't remember the dude's name.
Yeah, I'm
he's in
blanking on it
Saltburn,
too,
but that's not the same movie.
Barry Keoghan?
Yeah, he's the Joker.
He's sort of an evil person.
Yeah, he's an Irish Joker. Sort of an evil person. What about freaking Colin
he was
Farrell?
So good. He was so good.
Dude, I've been watching the Penguin show, but before we get into that, we should talk about all the Batmans real quick.
Do you have a favorite Batman? Favorite film or TV Batman?
Val Kilmer.
That's your fave?
I love that movie.
Hey,
which one, Mr. Freeze?
That was technically
is it Mr. Freeze Clooney?
Yes. Yeah, that was George Clooney was Mr.
Wait.
It was
Oh, it was. Sorry.
They
I was like,
did
no,
a-
Mr.
Mr.
Freeze
Freeze
was Arnold
movie.
Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
but-
the Batman for Mr. Freeze.
Yes.
Technically, the very first Batman movie I ever saw was the very first movie I ever saw, which was Michael Keaton's Batman.
I actually
But
don't
I was a
think I've
baby.
ever seen those.
What?
Yeah.
They're so good.
I'm
They're
familiar
truly so
with
good.
Jack Nicholson's portrayal of the Joker, but I don't think I've seen bits of it, but I don't think I've just like sat down and watched the whole thing. I know.
They are still very good. They hold up
I loved
for
Keaton
sure.
as Batman.
100%.
He was so great.
I'm
I'm a sucker for Nolan's Batman, though, like through and through. I just
sure.
love all of those.
Yeah, but I have a soft spot for the Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. I went and saw those in theaters, and it was the perfect age for it. Didn't get how completely over the top ridiculous they were.
Yeah.
But I did also, while we're on the Batman train here, start rewatching the animated series for the first time in a very long time, like the OG 90s Batman, the animated series, and with Kevin Conroy as Batman, and that probably is still, in my mind, the best Batman.
That cartoon was great.
It was so good. It was like...
I think it actually is the right tone for...
It nails Batman in a way that I don't know.
It's got the silliness and the
seriousness and the noir
and the dark. Yeah, it's got all of it.
And it's, I mean, maybe it's just the age.
And it's part of it's being animated in the age. But it's
our
like,
age but 90s animation also was a pretty special era, especially in the realm of TV animation. There was something very special going on. And then Kevin Conroy's portrayal, of course, Mark Hamill as the Joker. I mean, it's very special. Almost unfair to compare it to anything.
But we're
else.
doing it anyways.
We're doing it anyways.
Yeah.
Real quick, how are you enjoying Penguin?
It is awesome, and I saw somebody posted that the reason the Penguin is good is because the Sopranos laid a template for them.
That's kind of what I've heard.
And it is totally that. But I mean, Colin is just knocking it out of the park with this freaking.
I really
role.
like Christian Milioti too, who I've heard is doing a good performance in the show.
Yes. Wait, who is he?
She.
Oh yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
She, the Game of Thrones lady. Yeah, she's Rob Stark's wife who gets stabbed in the belly.
I don't. Is that's not her? Is it? It's not the same actress. I don't think. I don't think it is.
Maybe it's not. What else?
They
is she
do
in?
sort of look similar. She was in. She's been in several other things. Many other things.
Many
She's
other
got,
great
like-
things.
She's on IMDb. Go
She's
look
in
it
a
up.
movie with Adam Sandler. That's
I mean
very good.
that alone is just you know.
But I'm spacing on the name of it. It's
I
actually a very good,
I need to
very good
find out
movie.
who Rob Stark's wife is because I totally thought that was her, and I still think it's her. I could be wrong. It's really good.
We're doing real time Googling here.
Yeah, I can't. I'm so happy that they're doing a show in between that's actually like
Palm
awesome.
Springs.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Yeah,
with
Palm
Adam
Springs.
Sandberg.
What did I say?
You said Adam Sandler.
My
Andy
bad.
Samberg.
Andy Samberg.
Yeah.
Different.
Like
alias.
I don't remember her in Happy Gilmore, but
Funny
maybe
Jewish
she was
guy.
in it. They're both funny Jewish guys.
It's Kristen Milotti too. I messed her name up.
Yeah. Well, we got there in the end, and that's what Google's for. But yeah, Penguin's awesome. Colin's killing it. I did. What's the dude that is Falcone in the Batman? Who plays him?
Oh, it's
Yeah, I love him. I can
never
hate
remember
that
his
I can't
name, but
remember
he's
his name.
Oh brother, where art thou? And
Yes, yeah, he's amazing.
yeah,
He did not do Penguin, and his role is reprised in it. They got
in like I assume flashbacks.
yes, in Flash.
Because I was gonna say he has a rather,
but he wouldn't do it. He didn't. He refused to do the role, and the rumor is because of the violence against women that the character has to portray
interesting.
in the show. And like it, I mean, it is pretty gnarly and alarming. But it's a great show. It takes the same tone, and I think it's filling in the gaps for kind of establishing Penguin for the next film.
Nice.
Because I mean, it's pretty obvious that he's going to be the big bad, along with the Joker in the next one.
Well, I will say, to kind of wrap things up here.
Yeah.
I, of course, throwing it back to the Tim Burton movies, love the Danny DeVito Penguin.
Right.
But kind of, again, lining up with the Detective Comics kind of angle, I also love with the Batman and now with the Penguin show, getting to see Oswald Cobblepot as the gangster.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, how the character originally was. He was just, he wasn't, a mutant.
Right.
Penguin man.
He just walks funny.
He just is this, Tony Soprano gangster kind
Dude,
of.
he like literally James Gandolfini is the template for this character. Like they've put him together, and it's somehow it works so well that you would never know anything else. It's like a perfect template. But yeah, let me talk about something else.
Hello, welcome Micah Vannon to the Undertowers podcast. My name is Steven.
I'm Daniel.
Sam.
And we have a wonderful episode for you tonight. This is part 2 of our manga wrap-up. Last week we talked about Hunter x Hunter and Full Metal Alchemist. And tonight we're going to be talking about Attack on Titan and Uzumaki.
Ooh.
But before we get into tonight's topic, a word from our sponsors.
Yes.
They're pretty wordy.
Hey there, listeners. Are you tired of your ordinary peaceful life? Do you find yourself thinking, gee, I wish there was more existential horror in my daily routine? Well, have I got a product for you. Introducing Spiral Walls, the revolutionary new home renovation solution that brings cosmic horror right to your doorstep.
Oh my God.
Our patented wall warping technology ensures that no surface in your home stays boringly straight for long. But wait, there's more. Order in the next 60 minutes, and we'll throw in our exclusive Titan-sized window package.
Oh.
That's right. Now you can experience the thrill of seeing giant grinning faces peer at your home any time of day or night. Our customers say they haven't slept in weeks. Ever since I installed Spiral Walls, my house has never been the same, says local resident Suichi K. Literally, it keeps changing shape. I haven't been able to find my kitchen in 3 days. Want to really upgrade your experience? Try our premium rumbling package. Our neighbors will love the constant ground shaking ambiance, and the mysterious wall-crawling figures are a great conversation starter at parties. Side effects may include geometric obsession, inexplicable spiral patterns in your food, sudden wall mutations, unprecedented existential dread, and the occasional giant skinless visitor. Spiral Walls, because normal architecture is overrated. Call now at 1-800-SPIRAL-UP or visit www.spiralwalls.com. Use code UZUTITAN for 15% off your first reality bending installation. Company not responsible for any dimensional risk, spontaneous human transportation, or breath of load-bearing reality. Offer void where prohibited by laws of physical sanity. Not available in Paradise Island.
Oh my God.
And always, as always, code Undertower for an additional 10% off.
Yeah, that's 25% off.
25. That's a great deal. And who knows what, Black Friday's coming up. Who knows what they might be offering. But thank you very much, the Spiral Walls, for your support of tonight's episode.
I I just feel it's necessary to mention that there are so many layers to that ad, especially because it's very cyclical in nature. It kind of goes through a lot of things that we may be discussing tonight, and that lends to itself. So we really should take advantage of this offer.
Yes.
Man, that was great.
All right, so spirals. Shall we start with Uzumaki?
Let's do it.
Let's start with Uzumaki. Uzumaki by the mighty Junji Ito. This is actually the first manga that I ever read. I bought it
great intro
in
to
a stack of horror books that I'm sure mentioned before. Back
what was
in
amongst
2020.
it when you got it? In your stack of horror?
Things, it was Between Two Fires.
Great, which we've covered.
As well as Those Across the River, Buellman's first novel.
Okay.
Uzumaki, and a book called The Fisherman, which is kind of a Lovecraftian horror novel, and It, and which other King book did I get? Salem's Lot, I think.
Jeez. Did you read all these back to back?
Yeah.
God, what a fucking dark time that must have been.
Well, it was 2020, so.
Oh, okay.
So,
that's great.
Middle of the pandemic.
Talk about leaning into it, you know?
Yeah,
like,
truly.
There you go.
Truly. And another, The Only Good Indians by Stephen.
Sondheim?
No, yes, by Stephen Sondheim.
Hawking?
No, it's
the only good.
No, phenomenal.
It's all about tone. You change the tone, story changes. Imagine Nick Offerman reading Uzumaki.
Stephen Graham. Phenomenal horror writer, Native American, and most of his stories have Native American characters and themes, and this one was phenomenal.
That's great.
Yeah, I want to shout him out too because I think he's gaining in popularity and attention. But I have thoroughly enjoyed the books of his that I've read. But anyways, Uzumaki, all of these books, I was not in the loop as far as horror went in the literary world, and so I was doing just the Google searches of what are the best horror books, and in every single list, including King and Lovecraft and Frankenstein, classics,
right?
Uzumaki is pretty universally in the top 10.
Kept coming back around, right?
It kept coming. It kept circling back to Uzumaki, and it just was such an odd kind of conceit for a story. And if you're unfamiliar, it's the story of this town, this coastal town, Crossroads, in Japan, surrounded by mountains on one side and the coast on the other, and it seems to be attacked or cursed or something or contaminated, as the book cover says, with spirals, and everybody in the town becomes obsessed with spirals.
Right.
Yeah.
And
either positively or negatively.
Yeah, and even the positive eventually becomes negative.
Yes.
As it gets spiraling out of control.
But yeah, there's people fixated on them and people terrified of them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I had never read anything like it. And so this is the second time going through it, also having watched it now that the anime is available.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll touch on that in kind of at the end of the Uzumaki discussion. But yeah, it struck me as such a weird thing. Like, who's was obsessed with spirals? Like, how is this? I'm not gonna say that I was like, oh yeah, sure, this isn't gonna be scary. But I was definitely very interested to see like what is he gonna do to make this scary. And right off the bat, the very beginning of the book, very beginning of the show, you have the main character, Kyrie, her boyfriend, Suichi. His dad is kind of the first one in the town to become obsessed with spirals, and he becomes obsessed to the point where he starts contorting his body into spiral shapes, first just making his eyes circle in opposite directions, then making his tongue extend out into this, beyond Gene Simmons' length, into this spiral, and then finally ordering this big tub, like keg, and folding himself, wrapping himself inside of it in a spiral to the point where all of his bones break and he dies.
Yeah. He seemed really happy the whole time, though.
He did. Yeah, he was happy about it. The rest of his family were not so much, but
mental health is, it's probably not good, but he was happy the whole time.
He was pursuing his dream.
His dream to be a circle.
And
a never-ending
But
circle.
then when he's then cremated, his ashes form a spiral up into the sky before falling down into the lake that is at the center of this town.
Yep.
Or the pond, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. So out of all the characters, he probably has the best story, like happy. He lived the American dream.
In some ways, it's
he
the
followed
happiest
his
ending.
dream.
Yeah.
He became one with the spiral.
It's so funny.
It actually is the happiest ending out of all of them.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue it's him and Suichi and Kyrie probably, but yeah, it's a bleak.
But it escalates from there in weirdness.
Yes.
Rather spectacularly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it does get more. I'd have to actually think about it more, but I think that first one is the most upsetting one for me.
Sure.
There's lots of other gross things like reading this. It's very imaginative and really dark. I just felt sick to my stomach basically the whole time.
Well, and there's the after effects too.
Yeah.
So this is a little spoilery. Just be warned before we're getting into kind of just thematic things. But
absolutely.
But leading into it, one of the things that skeeves me out the most personally is when his father dies. That's not like the end of his impact on everybody.
Yeah.
The father drives the mother insane. He keeps haunting her, whether he's literally doing that himself or she's just gone crazy. She's snapped.
That one's sort of open to interpretation.
Yeah.
There.
Yes. Yeah. And she sees spirals everywhere.
Me, I think just a tad more.
Sure. What gets me about it is she proceeds to shave her hair off because she can't stand the spirals and just the natural spirals in her hair. She cuts her fingerprints off and the prints of her toes off. Yeah.
Because if you look closely, they look pretty spirally.
Yeah, exactly. And Suichi is paranoid at one point that she's going to figure out that she has spirals in her ears because that's the shape of
the canal,
of our eardrums, and she does eventually.
Yeah, the cochlea, yeah.
And she sticks scissors in there and pops them, and then this is
Christ.
The part that gets me, is her laying in bed before she finally dies, all wrapped up in bandages, kind of straitjacketed so she can't hurt herself anymore, and just screaming because the world is spinning.
Yeah.
Because she popped her ears. And
because that's the part of your ear that
keeps
gives you balance. Yeah.
So I had in 2019 a terrible ear infection, and my left eardrum burst in the middle of the night. And I woke up in the middle of the night with the worst case of vertigo that I've ever had. And I'd had it a couple times before then with ear infections in that ear.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just like previously when I've had it was everything spinning kind of like this.
Yeah.
This time it was like this fast. The room was spinning like that.
And that was when you decided to read the first Uzumaki. It
was like a year later.
But, in that moment.
Yeah. But yeah, no. And so I had it so bad. It was a full 3 days before the spinning stopped. And it was about a week before I could walk straight.
Damn.
And to this day, if I can't do the whole, plug your nose up and pop your ears thing, and I can't sneeze, I have to do the dad sneeze,
loud,
really loud
to the
obnoxious
side
sneeze.
Yeah.
because if I try to hold it in, I will sometimes trigger vertigo from the pressure in that side of the ear. So when she's laying there freaking out about the world spinning, I start getting like
some PTSD.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So that it's compared to the visuals of so much of the rest of the book, like that's extremely tame. Yeah. But he tapped into something for those of us that have like gone through that is truly
it hits
chilling.
harder. Yeah.
Well, no, and it is really it's also just really dark, where it like the body horror and the horribleness of her like kind of mania about it, resulting in her making it worse.
Yeah. She's like, so her paranoia about the spirals ends up causing her to
spiral
join the spiral.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting thing. There's some great videos on YouTube that I would need to watch a few more times before I could remember most of these names, unfortunately. But it was a story about kind of tracking Junji Ito's influences. And one thing that this fellow was talking about that I had kind of noticed, but I couldn't have just described it this way. But the art in Uzumaki specifically, but in Junji Ito's work as a whole, is spectacular. It's grotesque. It's hard to look at sometimes, but it's truly beautiful. It's art. Very much like the best of Berserk in that regard. But one thing that this gentleman on YouTube was talking about was you can actually track one of the things that makes his artwork so powerful and so impactful all the way back to a technique that Walt Disney started, where with early animated hand animated movies, you'd have these very intricately painted backgrounds with sometimes much more loosely or less detailed characters on top of it, which would have to be less detailed because you're doing however many cells to move the character around.
Yeah.
And so it lent this kind of visual style of this very highly detailed background with these kind of slightly simpler characters.
Yep.
That led to this really interesting atmosphere, and that ended up greatly impacting the first pioneers in manga and how they were doing things. And Junji Ito took that style and kind of utilized it to amplify a lot of the horrific elements, where the world becomes so detailed and a lot of our main characters not simple but less detailed, so that it's in contrast to a lot of these really horrific things that he'll do, these extremely detailed drawings of. One of the best examples being Suichi and his mother seeing his father wrapped up in the barrel, where Suichi and his mother, essentially some lines and ink, not a whole lot of texture and shading.
Yeah.
Very simple, contrasted with his father, where there's texture and shading and every the nth amount of detail.
Yeah.
And that contrast helps highlight the horror that he's presenting.
Trying to show,
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. So without getting, I mean, this is an Under Towers discussion, so spoilers. It does somehow manage to up the ante with each of the stories. Sometimes not as horrific, but with the effects of the spiral.
They keep impacting more people. Where it starts, it's the father, then it's the mother, then
you have the girl that's at school that's befriended. Kyrie, that has the half moon kind of scar
on her head,
who becomes obsessed with Suichi.
Yep.
And her scar has always attracted men to her. and it eventually, because of
becomes
the corruption of this town, turns into a spiral.
I think probably the image of her face as the spiral finally starts to consume her is probably the iconic image from from the manga.
For sure. Yeah. That's that and Suichi's dad.
Yeah, I think
those are like the two images.
If it had to have an album cover, it would be
it would be her. And that would probably be her with the hair pulled back and the one eye there.
Spiraling out.
And from there it goes to the hair spirals when Kyrie's hair goes crazy.
Oh, that was such a weird moment too, where she's like, "I need more attention."
I know,
and I think that was one where that was episode 2 of the anime, I think. Yeah, and it was not as impactful as the.
Well, and I think that's one thing where they're like, not to be critical of it at all. After those first few episodes, and the manga is 19 chapters. The recent anime is 4 episodes, and the story is compelling throughout, but the beginning and we talked about this I think already. The beginning and the end are the most compelling parts. Yeah. Once the town is being fully consumed later on, in the middle there, it's interesting, but it's very, even though there is a larger story being told, it's very episodic. It's basically horror of the week for Kyrie, and they're all interesting, but there is a certain level of formularity to it. That being said, I think in each one there are maybe some wider points. There's also just general horror elements being told, so they're meant to be entertaining in and of themselves. But I do think they're each sort of touching on different things as this town spirals out. I do try not to say it every time.
There are so many dad jokes. And it's like, I mean, I don't want to get all turned around on this, but
but I think so the anime, the first episode,
really great.
It's absolutely phenomenal. It had me super hyped.
Yeah.
I would give the entirety of the show like a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Because it's good. It's not bad. It's good.
I mean, it's only 4 episodes, right? So it's
absolutely. It's not a huge time investment.
Yeah.
But I think that it actually would have benefited from being a couple episodes longer. And I think that maybe excluding the first and last episodes, it would have benefited from changing up format a little bit. And this is going to be an odd jump. But I think it would have been better served by following like a SpongeBob route where you have a 30-minute episode,
but with two or three
15-minute episodes.
Yeah, I mean that's like most children's shows too. Like,
but it would because they tried to
that would
mix
have been
some
so
of the,
exciting.
They would exactly, and but they tried to mix. What makes it work in the manga is
each one is contained.
It's all contained. It's like there's an overarching thing that's happening in the town where it's escalating, and you can see the escalation as you're going.
Yeah.
But with it being so episodic until kind of the end, they tried to tie it all together into a normal show format, and I don't know that it worked as well.
Yeah,
I think that like essentially short films, maybe would have worked better, and they could have included more. In each of them.
I also
like the Jack in the Box story isn't in it. Like they have they have in towards the end the dude bouncing around on a spring.
Yeah, but they did miss that episode.
But it's so much gnarlier in the manga when you have the whole backstory of the Jack in the Box kid.
Yeah.
So again, it's a good if you like Uzumaki, even if you haven't read it yet, if you like horror anime, horror manga, you should watch Uzumaki. It could have been better though.
I also thought, and this is an interesting sort of broader manga to anime adaptation, all manga for the most part, with notable, usually special edition exceptions, is black and white.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I felt like, and I know I think they were trying to pay homage, but a lot of the art in this show literally looks like just almost like digitally altered panels of the show, of the manga, in a way that didn't always work. Sometimes it did.
Sometimes it did.
Yeah.
But sometimes it was like,
you guys didn't finish the anime, but
No.
so in the very
and that's kind of a testament to it also. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to come back to it for this show. I read it, but it was like,
yeah. So in the last episode, when you get to like the forests and everything with all the spiral plants, that was pretty good. Again, like we mentioned, the first episode pretty much nailed it. But there is a lot, and I've heard some things that there were
I heard some studio stuff.
Some studio stuff getting in the way of the animators doing what they wanted to do, and if that's true, like that sucks.
Yeah. But
it seems a fairly common theme.
I felt like a more typical adaptation where of a manga to an anime, where they take the iconic images from the manga and the story, update them into anime with color, and add like a new level. Because one of the things that's actually really fun about anime adaptations is actually like, oh, the bell is red. Like,
right.
You know, it's like you kind of like, I didn't really realize it was red.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes we get those details in like the colored pages, but like,
well, and like, so I don't know, you read this on Viz.
yes.
But here in this hardcover, there are color pages.
Not on the ones I read. Yeah.
I want to say that every chapter.
Although actually, I often keep my iPad in black and white, so it's possible that they were.
I mean, you usually don't have your lights on, so I don't even know
true.
how you read it in the first place.
iPad backlit.
But
Yeah, it's dark and it's black and white. So,
but yeah, so and they're beautiful.
Yes.
color
No, it is.
pages.
Yeah. Yes.
So it would have been cool. It would have been interesting to see, and a whole potentially a whole different level of horror too. Seeing
Yes.
color would have been interesting, and a way to maybe deal with the inevitable inability to fully capture someone like Junji Ito's art
yeah.
in a moving medium.
Yeah. So I think before we kind of discuss the end, which I think is a nice way to then move to Attack on Titan.
Close this loop.
Close this loop.
Well, and we could maybe save discussing the ending for like another kind of comparison discussion we want to have. But
Just in case,
are there any
we want to circle back.
From the meat of this, are there any moments you'd want to highlight?
I mean, the fact that
I know
a
the
lot of the
slugs
people
grossed you out.
turned
I was
Too,
about to
but
talk
yeah.
about
Yeah.
like the slug sex. That was
the
pretty
snail.
bad.
Well, and that's even gnarlier in the book.
Snail, my bad. Yeah.
Seriously, I just remember watching that and like two like guys that used to be dudes, like turn into these slug people and just start like
Well,
Snails.
snails.
Call back. I keep calling him slug. That's
Yeah.
so my bad. Call back to the Mabinogian.
Yes.
By the way.
Yep, it's true.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But they literally just start sticking their tongues in each other's mouths and breeding together. And then they make these eggs, and everybody's like, oh, they made eggs. And they're like, oh, they're hermaphrodites. And then he's like, fuck them. And he just starts stomping them.
Right.
And I'm like, so many things happen just in that one
So it's so much
sentence.
gnarlier in the manga too,
super
because
gross.
I can't even remember if they did mention it in the anime. It was a very brief mention, but the snail, the original snail, is this one boy in the school that is always late. He starts only showing up when it's raining, and he's the first person in the town to turn into a snail.
Yeah.
The next person to turn into a snail, the one that then copulates with him, is his bully.
Yeah.
Which again, if they mention it in the show, is very brief, but it's very explicit in the manga. And then it's the teacher who crushes the eggs.
Right.
And the way that little chapter ends is with the teacher then showing up a couple of days later, fully a snail, but with this like weird eggy texture all over his skin. He's not got like the smooth thing. It's like he's covered in these egg bumps.
It is
from the
weird how he was
clutch of eggs that he
super like
crushed.
fast to identify what was going on.
Yeah.
Oh, they like breeded, and I gotta kill these baby snail things, and everybody's like, no, don't kill them. I mean why?
I don't know. I'm not
Why
going to say
not?
that. I don't know. Do we want a bunch of?
I don't know if we want.
No,
humans,
I don't want them either. I didn't get the sentiment with like, oh wait, stop.
Oh yes,
I'm like,
that feeling. Like, no, absolutely.
Why?
Crush them.
Like,
but
why
maybe don't do it with your.
not?
Maybe don't do it with your feet.
Yes.
maybe.
don't get it on you. Yeah,
Or
you
like
know,
a flamethrower
just
or something.
create a little bit of distance. But then it was like like if you just stopped watching there, it's almost like the story becomes a problem about people just becoming snails, you know?
Right. Which again,
like that seemed like a real concern for like maybe 2 minutes. Like, God, everybody's gonna turn these freaking snail people. We gotta smash them.
which again, this is another testament to Junji Ito is like similarly to becoming obsessed with spirals does not seem like a likely horror thing.
Yeah.
Turning into a snail kind of seems like yes, it's a horrific idea, but it also feels kind of like a
like we
90s
can
comedy thing.
defeat snails.
Like
they're slow.
I accidentally became it's like a Honey I Shrunk the Kids kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like in this context and what happens to the snail people later when the food runs out it's genuinely horrific.
They're slow. They're easy to prey
the
upon.
whole scene in the hospital with the mosquitoes.
Oh my gosh, that's really awful.
That's really awful.
Yeah.
And the placenta mushrooms and
placenta mushrooms and the babies wanting to go back in the bellies and
So this is a gross anime.
Right. And I was gonna
really
say
Very gross.
Like we just dropped some big spoilers in a like really spoiler free way that makes it sound like it's way worse than what that just sounded like.
Like I could honestly insert a couple of comments like, oh yeah, when they became like human cereal, yeah, super gross. Oh yeah, when they became noodles, like just pasta people. Like I could insert that now, and it would seem like that is a part of the story.
Yeah,
even though it's not.
It's not. Although is it?
Those are lies.
So
the story is a lie.
One couple other things real quick, and this is fairly obvious as you're reading it and looking at the artwork, but I think one of the things that drew me to Junji Ito, art style wise, he is definitely very heavily influenced by H.P. Lovecraft, generally, and then specifically, he's very influenced by H.R. Geiger, who was very influenced himself by Lovecraft. So
of the Geiger counter?
Of the Geiger counter. No, of the he's the
scientist.
He's the or what I think he's passed, but the insane artist that like did all the concept artwork for the Alien franchise. So like he designed the Alien, the xenomorph, and then all the kind of weirdly sexual horror stuff of the ship and
interesting.
No, I'm good. So yeah, Alien is his most known work, but he did a series of Necronomicon books. And it's called something slightly different, but influenced by the Lovecraft's Necronomicon. And those art books were a huge influence on Junji Ito. But one other thing I'm sure I'm not the first person to put this together. If I am, what's wrong with everybody? But something I haven't seen discussed as much is that a lot of Uzumaki, and I wonder if this was a direct influence, feels like the Upside Down from Stranger Things, the Upside Down version of Starry Night by Van Gogh.
The Van Gogh thing?
Yeah.
Because if you look at Starry Night, it's kind of got these
Stuff
swirls and spirals and stuff up in the sky.
Yeah.
And Junji Ito did a lot of that in the water and the sky and everything with with Uzumaki.
I mean, that messes me up in an even weirder way because I love that Don McLean song.
Sure.
So
yeah. So anyways, any closing thoughts, Uzumaki?
Yeah, I loved it. It reminded me there was an interesting comparison I recently read, the When We Ceased to Understand the World, which was a recent New York Times bestseller, and there was an interesting story in that about the man who discovered the math behind the singularity. So like black holes, and they don't call them black holes in that, but it's like a somewhat fictional account of real things that happened. But the man who did discover that was like realizing that gravity, if you like if you get mass confined into a tight enough space, it starts to warp everything. And it realized, again, in a similar like spiral pattern kind of idea, that like it's gravity like feeding up on itself where it like can't get out.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that when the guy who discovered that like went nuts, it broke his brain. And it's very interesting. It's very much the parallel, a negative parallel of somewhere in between Shuichi's mom and dad. And so it was interesting to like, in the context of reading this, read a real world parallel.
Sure.
It was also, and it's also funny because it's like a science fiction-y story about real things. But
Wait. So a scientist
yes.
was looking into singularities, black holes.
So this was before we knew black holes existed, because the way we discovered black holes was a guy figured out the math. He like discovered that these, based on the math of how we understand physics, these should exist, and then we found them, which is how.
Well, it was only fairly recent, like the last couple of years, that we got an actual picture of one, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So it was still all not theoretical, but like we had no visual.
So this guy kind of discovered it.
He discovered the math behind them that has proven to be true, at least for the most part.
True in the fact that it can't be solved.
Well, I think it wasn't it that, was it his formula, or like an advanced version of his formula was what Christopher Nolan
used for
typed
Interstellar,
into a computer, and that was simulated.
He did a bunch of because he did a bunch of things saying like if you were in a black hole, you would like see the past in front of you and the present behind. You know, there's like, and I'm not getting the details wrong, but like there's like, because the way the light would be bending, you would like be able to see different things, which Christopher Nolan leaned into and fictionalized and like. But like that's
made a kick-ass movie.
But it was just it was really interesting to. It's like this book is obviously, it's not silly, but it's very absurd in the premise. But it's also
part of why it's so horrific.
It is part of why it's so horrific. But it's also, we actually have a literal real world parallel to it.
Yeah. But the guy lost his mind.
And it's, again, black holes.
Well, thanks for bringing it up, Daniel. Now us and all our listeners are losing our minds.
But the truth is, he was sane, very smart, and the math and research and almost the path of this led him in a spiral.
I almost I kind of wonder, like, what came first? Was he already going insane? And was that part of, like, was his mind open and free enough that he was able to come up with these?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
Would a saner mind have even asked these questions?
I don't know. It's interesting, and it feels like the way the story presents it is that he didn't discover it by accident, but he discovered it like sort of unwittingly, like realized like, oh hey, this, and then it like sort of consumed him. The interesting thing though was he said that the people are no different than the universe, and so like people can become, or cultures can become, black holes.
Oh, interesting. Which
was a really interesting idea, and he was German in the early part of the 1900s. So, there's some interesting parallels there too.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, like.
All right.
Yeah. Couple.
Well, so yeah, read Uzumaki if you don't like horror, don't read Uzumaki.
No. Watch SpongeBob.
Watch SpongeBob.
Yeah.
But if you like a little bit of horror, especially of the body and cosmic variety, then definitely give Uzumaki a read. Junji Ito is the master, and this is one of his best works. So, all right, next up, Attack on Titan.
The sexiest anime at this point.
Of the ones we've read,
you're like, I would say Sailor Moon.
I've not read Sailor Moon yet.
Should we read Sailor Moon?
I don't know.
Was there a manga of Sailor Moon?
I feel like there probably. Oh yes, because
Japan.
Mr. Hunter x Hunter, Yoshihiro Togashi's wife is the creator of Sailor Moon.
Well, yes, we should.
Yeah,
for sure.
It probably is actually really great.
I'm sure it's great.
But I would say for Attack on Titan, I do think Hunter x Hunter weirdly and Berserk more obviously are sexier, probably.
More obviously.
I've watched the I watched
pretty apparent reasons. If you flip through a couple pages, be like, oh, okay, I see what he's saying. Yeah, just pick any of them, you'll see.
And then honestly, actually, Attack on Titan might come below Full Metal, if I'm being honest, too.
I mean, like, the most, like,
If you mean sexy
to,
by, like,
talk
cool.
about.
Oh,
like a really
okay,
cool,
fair
like
enough.
a really
Yeah.
cool car.
You know,
I thought we were literally using sexy in the correct way.
No, I mean sexy in the way that, you know, John Krasinski is the sexiest man alive right now. That's why. That's what I mean.
That's also just wrong.
But he is. It's what I'm saying. It's like he's in the spotlight.
All right.
This is spotlighted.
Fair enough.
For sure. Out of all of everything we've read, this is the top. Maybe Hunter x Hunter's close, but Attack on Titan, I think, has kind of held that domain since 2015.
Maybe so.
Right.
Yeah,
Probably.
I mean, it did.
I think you're probably right.
It did just have a very notable finish.
That's what I mean.
Not
Yeah.
that long ago.
It also
And
has
it's
a
really
stage
good to
show
finish
right
well.
now.
Yeah. It
has
does.
a
I can't do that. I
musical.
can't do that.
Have you watched
I
some
can't
of
do
it?
the anime stage
Dude,
shows. I can't do it.
Did I not send you
Dude,
guys
but
one of a
here's the
guy
thing.
doing
If
like
it-
the
oh, yeah.
ODM? And like he's like slicing things around.
But
There's
don't,
like a
don't
giant, like,
pretend that we would not go if it came
I
to
mean-
Nashville. If we could go see Attack on Titan at T-Pack.
I would pay $75, but anything over that, I'm not going.
Okay. That's a
I'd
pretty
pay,
high
Unless-
I'd pay
ticket.
$100.
I mean, if you paid 100, I would. But
I'd
if
pay
it was just
$100.
me, I'd be
Yeah.
like 75 is my limit.
I don't like
yeah.
like musicals.
I don't
But
know.
I mean, supposedly, they've got freaking 2-scale Titans
No, I know.
on the stage, and the wire work is that
I
like,
just
makes
can't.
sense.
I just cannot wait for
Don't
like
come to the city. Don't make me go. That's what I'm saying. Don't.
Yeah, please
Don't
don't
go.
come.
Please come to
But if
Nashville.
you make a live action movie of it, of the
They
musical,
tried. Well, there is a live action movie, I think.
no, I
Really?
mean a live
Yeah, I don't
live
think it was very
action
good.
movie musical.
Movie musical.
Yeah,
These
like
Titans
Wicked.
are coming.
Watch out, he's colossal. we should work on this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you guys will write
Oh
the
my
movie
God.
musical.
But no, there's a DBZ
Yeah.
musical anime. There's a Hunter x Hunter one too. I mean, so I don't want to see that either though. I love Hunter x Hunter. I don't want to see it.
I think it might take away from what I like about it.
like 30-second clips on the internet are like, I'm like, that's great. Yeah, that's good. Okay, we can move on.
That was also free.
So okay, I had watched the first season
Yep.
when they were on Netflix, I think.
Same.
Yeah. Disclaimer: I love this shit so much.
And
I love Attack on Titan.
I'm
I
a
think
huge
it's
fan.
so fun.
And I enjoyed the first season, and it was my good friends Ben and Kim. Shout out Ben and Kim, who are massive anime nerds. They convinced me to watch it. This was when I was still very thoroughly in my I don't like anime.
Yeah. especially a mainstream one like this.
Lame stream.
Yeah.
But it was sick. It was really cool, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I just got distracted. I mean, this was before the second season was even available in the U.S. I think so.
They did slow roll the
Yes.
show so hard.
Yeah, so it was by the time the second season was available, I was moved on to other things.
Mm-hmm.
So I still haven't watched it. I'll watch it all once we're finished reading it. At this point, I want to finish reading it first. But so I stopped watching when the story really just like kind of starts getting interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, kind of we'll try to be fairly spoiler free, but we're reading through the Colossal editions here. We're through book 4. We're which puts us about a little over halfway done with the entire manga series. There's 3 more of these editions left. So you guys have extended further than I have.
Only slightly.
Only slightly, but to the point where there's some very big reveals that are about to happen.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen the whole thing.
Yeah.
The whole show.
So
I'm reading through it now with you guys, but I mean, I know where everything ends up.
I think it's
spoiler. We're fine in spoilers.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I find the world very interesting, and I love.
I think it might be helpful to say where you're at in the story, just because I know the level of spoil
Okay.
that happens in the next 3 books.
So here's the big thing that's happened.
Yeah, the last big
the,
thing.
The last literal big thing.
Yeah.
That happened was an extremely sick fight between Levi and the Beast Titan.
Right.
Yes.
That's essentially where this number 4 Colossal Edition ends.
We also get a fight with. There's fights going on with Bertolt and.
Yes, before that.
Yeah. And
inside the wall,
Thunder Spears and Aaron. All mixed
so
up
to establish like the through story, you guys know about Historia. She's the queen. We discover the founding Titan, the power that Aaron has like possessed, shouldn't have, but does. How he is the coordinate. Those are the main keys for what comes next.
And then he's also
and all this other sick fight stuff is awesome, but not the through story that matters right now.
Correct.
Is Historia and what's going on.
That's just the last major beat.
Exactly. I'm just catching up anybody who might be.
So yeah. If you've read or watched it, that's where we're at. So we will do another Attack on Titan episode in a couple of months when we have finished.
Yep.
Which will be much more spoiler heavy, obviously, because there's been some major story developments up to this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and I have a feeling that kind of the biggest reveals are about to happen. There in book 4, we had some massive reveals.
Yeah.
But I can feel that there's some massive ones are on the way. But so one thing I remember finding really interesting watching it for the first time, and when I was not as familiar with anime and manga, was how it's a anime manga, so it's Japanese, a very German setting, very German names.
Jaeger, all that. Yeah.
Yep, Jaeger is German for hunter. Bertolt, very German name.
Reinhardt. Yeah.
Reinhardt.
I don't know. Yeah.
Armin. Yeah.
So, and then just a very kind of alpine setting. Like, if you were going to do a live action, it would seem fairly obvious to me that you need to be filming it in Bavaria era, Germany, or
like the Redwoods,
but sure, for sure.
You'd
have to
for certain bits.
For certain bits, you'd have to film in there for sure.
Yeah.
But as far as like just like Alpine Germany and Austria seems like kind of where a lot of this is going to be set.
Yeah.
It is oddly German.
Yeah, it's a very German story.
So funny.
Which initially like struck me a little like, the Japanese and Germans working together again. Should I feel nervous about going into this story?
I mean, this is the best thing they've ever done.
There you go. Yes, the nicest collaboration.
Yeah, it's definitely blessed the West.
But I, not knowing where this is going, I love it. I love stories that are, whether they are set here in our world or in a fantasy world, that are post-apocalypse.
Yeah.
Of course, I love post-apocalypse where things like Fallout and Last of Us and The Road that are directly after this apocalyptic thing. But I also love these stories where like there's, whether it's 100 years, several hundred years, thousands of years later.
I mean, it's the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Like it's that whole setting.
So there's like, whether it's like a lost civilization or just like we're well past what happened.
Yeah.
And civilization has blossomed again to this next point. And so there's a lot of questions for me about like, because it's a really interesting world where there are certain aspects of this civilization that are fairly like, I would say 18th and 19th century.
Yeah.
Horse and carts. There's
it's
no
steampunk. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not even. There's not even a whole lot of steam except for that. So it's like the cavalry is literally riding horses. Everything is drawn by a cart.
Yeah.
The houses,
but then
don't
they have
any of
this
the modern
this crazy ODM gear, which seems motorized and
it's like
motorized.
it's powered by like oxygen canister, some sort of air canisters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
like literally CO2, like it's CO2 like paintball guns almost.
Yeah.
Like,
and they have, some, kind of old school cannons that are on these fairly modern kind of rail systems.
Yeah.
So it and they have firearms,
where
but certainly nothing crazy modern.
Yeah.
So again, kind of just like late 19th, early 20th century firearms, as far as like bolt action and things like that. So I am very interested to see if that's ever addressed, or if it's just like, this is just the world that it's in, and that's fine, and that's cool.
Yeah.
The kind of different mixings of technology that are available.
Yeah.
I'm good either way.
Sure.
If it's brought up that like, no, these, because it is hinted at that there's technology of the past
has been forgotten.
That has been forgotten or repressed.
Yeah.
Or both in certain cases.
Very, very Dune like.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's forbidden. Almost.
Yeah.
Well, and to give a little background to if someone is unfamiliar with Attack on Titan, it's to explain a little bit what Steven's talking about. With the story opens, it's revealed that all of humanity now lives within 3 sets of walls.
Gigantic walls.
A gigantic set of walls where most of the people live. An interior.
I mean, it's like
walls.
How tall are the walls? They're like
50 meters, I believe.
Yeah, so that's like 120 feet tall. Yeah.
And then 150.
Yeah, something crazy like that. Yeah.
And then there's a tighter knit one and then a central wall set where the royalty and the upper echelons.
And the diameter is like almost like the size of Texas, pretty much.
But it's huge, and it's huge. Which is not actually apparent from the beginning.
Right. No.
It's just they even though you can see it, it's not. It's actually a huge amount of space.
Yeah. Enough for 3
enough for,
giant cities to be in.
And for the entirety of, as far as we know
all
at the beginning, all humans live inside.
Yeah. And they live now in these walls because there are these things called Titans that roam around now. And there was an event where they started harassing humanity. So humanity built these walls. This all stuff is just presented without much more explanation than this. And so now humanity lives there. There are several different military units that either man the walls. There's the scouting division that will go on some expeditions outside the walls, but they don't really do much. And when the story opens, it's been 100 years since a Titan attack has happened. And then the story really gets going when a Titan that's 100 meters tall, or however tall he is.
The colossal. I mean, he would have to be over
something
150 meters tall.
But he's way taller than the walls, and then he like kicks a hole in the walls, and then it causes a massacre, and that's basically where the story spirals out. Eren Yeager, who's our protagonist, and this is where the story is he
is the protagonist, but I also kind of hate him.
No, he's kind of well, and again,
he's kind of like did you guys play the Assassin's Creed games?
No.
I think I played one of them.
Okay.
But it wasn't the one.
Those are pretty old. I wonder if it's
he reminds me a lot of. I don't think that they would have purposefully done this, but he reminds me a lot of Connor from Assassin's Creed 3, which was the one set here in America, where like on the one hand, Connor is a badass, supreme badass. He's a native dude. He kicks ass and takes names throughout the whole game. He also is very frequently a whiny little bitch.
Yeah.
And it really gets on your nerves. So it's like, especially because like you're so badass, can we not just be badass and play the game?
Yeah.
So, well,
it just reminds me a lot in that way. It's like Eren has he has a badass side of him.
He does. But and I do think he actually gets better as I've grown attached to him.
Agreed.
Much more so, but. I'm aware that there are.
More,
I'm aware. I've heard the rumblings of things.
The rumbling,
But either way, Eren is a deconstruction because this is even though it is, the tone is different than many other things. In many other classic shonen stories, it is also a shonen, and Eren is, I feel like, a deconstruction of that shonen hero, because it's revealed Eren has, unbeknownst to him, the power to turn into a Titan, and then it's revealed that humans can turn into Titans as we sort of learn more details about the role. And it's a very classic shonen and in general anime trope to have the protagonist has special powers, and usually the most special powers that are revealed during times of hardship or where they just have to want it the most, and then they're able to battle and fight and overcome. And I honestly, when I started this, I didn't get far enough because I watched the first season, like Steven said, and then fell off. I can't remember if more was available or if I just didn't continue when I watched it. But I thought the story would be Eren now as the Titan battling the other Titans, and you know, and it was going to be the typical he learns to power up and then he struggles and he encounters new things, and it was just like that's what it was. That is really not the story at all.
No.
At all. There's
a couple episodes.
There's some combat, and there is learning to do new things with the Titans. The Titans can do more than just grow big and strong. They can harden their bodies. They can harden their bodies and leave it out. They can make heat. There's all sorts of things the Titans can do. There are specific powers to ones where they're going really big or having armor or being a beast.
Or being a lady.
Like literally,
I love that one of the Titans is just
the lady Titan.
It's the female Titan.
The female Titan.
Like what's great about it? Well, it's the female
Titan.
Well, so here's one thing we were kind of talking before we started filming, and Daniel's got something he'll bring up later, but trying to find kind of some similarities between Uzumaki and Attack on Titan to talk about. Here's one thing that is not a direct similarity, but just something that they both share. We talked about with Uzumaki, both the spirals and then things like the turning into snails, being things that on the surface seem, if not outright silly, certainly not something that is inherently scary. That then, because of the way that the story is being told in the art, is very chilling. Mm-hmm. I would say that the way that Hajime Isayama draws the Titans strikes me very similarly.
No, it does.
Because most of them, except for kind of the special Titans, most of them look like kind of giant babies.
Yes.
And they're naked, but they're genitalless.
Yes.
They have these just ridiculous expressions on their face.
They're
smiling.
They have a derpy
except for the abnormal ones.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
The abnormal ones are different.
They're drawn in such a way that they look like they should be kind of these innocent giants.
Yes.
And then
they're going around eating people. Yeah.
Tearing people apart.
Yeah. They're not eating out of starvation, out of necessity.
They're not eating.
They're just
when
eating
they eat,
because
their
they
bellies
do.
get swollen, and
they
once
throw
they're
up.
too full, they just throw them up. They're not
even
even consuming them.
even the abnormals, the way that they move is weird and wrong, and it's so this is the connection that I'm making here, or the shared thing that they have, is this idea of like this thing that shouldn't be scary, but now put into this context of these enormous monsters that are eating people, tearing people to shreds
for no
apparent reason.
Yeah.
With a grin on their face is pretty horrific.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that with the anime too, which of course you have the benefit of seeing them move. And I thought they animated the artwork very well of capturing that, like, this is wrong.
And they do in both. They capture just how like scary it is, and there's so little you can do, and like you said, you've got all this movement gear to try to combat them, and it really doesn't. For most, it just doesn't even really do that much. Unless
you're super skilled.
Exactly.
Well, and then
especially at the beginning, there's just people just dying left and right.
And the conceit is that, like, and I have to imagine. I wonder. This is okay. I'm gonna make a weird connection here.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
I wonder if it is at all possible, if Isayama watched Swamp People. Because if you watch Swamp People, then you know that the best place to kill an alligator in order to preserve the hide is a quarter-sized spot at the base of their skull.
The nape, yeah.
And so you shoot with just a simple little .22, that exact spot, and they're dead instantly. The reason why I make this connection is because the only way to kill a titan is by cutting and severing a spot that is the equivalent of a quarter-sized spot on an alligator.
Yeah.
Very small window right at the base of the skull.
Yeah. Or the nape of the neck.
Yes.
Yeah.
So probably did not watch the History Channel gem Swamp People while writing this.
I'm sure he was watching it, developed a Creole accent, was like, oh man, I need to do this.
That's what I want. I want shoot him! Shoot him! Cut him up!
One thing that's interesting is I had wondered if this was our world in the future, like literally our world.
Yeah.
I started to think it was for a moment because, and I'm not really sure.
Sam's
at this
covering
point.
his face to not say anything.
I know. But
things I'm thinking.
well, and I want to do this too. I want to do a bit where we like predict what we think might happen. I think we should do that for Sam, and then have Sam just go like, But I can do my connection.
I'm happy to contain myself.
Yeah, contain yourself, but you can kind of go, but there is an interesting bit as the story develops. We've got this world, we don't know what's going on. Humanity's confined to this small area now. Everything's kind of going. It is revealed one of our main characters is named Mikasa, where the rest of the names are German. She's also drawn in a different way. She does look more Asian.
Yep.
And it said there are. So this is where I do think it's our world, but somehow in the future where it's like they're like most of these are one kinds of people. There are Asian people.
Yeah.
And I think they say Asian.
Yeah,
but
they do.
like,
They absolutely do. That it's like
so
a
it's
different
like, wait,
race
this
of,
is
a different race
that
of
was
people.
the thing. That was the first, like, and obviously it's different races, different cultures, which you can have in an alternate or just created world where like,
but
certain
it is
things
called
are Mars.
out.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And there were some things like seeded, and that's when my imagination, like honestly, like, because I was enjoying I was enjoying it, but those the reveals that have happened in the last little bit have taken it to a new level where I'm like, okay, I'm interested in this in a different way. Knowing that this world was our world, not just like, it made me wonder much more about, wait, how really did we get here if this is our world that's now this? Obviously, I was still curious about it, but it's very interesting. But
yeah, truly. I've wondered the same thing. The direct reference to Asians, and the differentiating between the very obviously German names and and look.
They've not said German.
They've not related Mikasa to anyone yet, have they?
Not that I'm aware of.
I thought that.
Did they draw any correlations to who she might be like?
No.
Not outside of her just being Asian.
Did we meet Kenny?
Kenny, we have
Did we meet his relationship with Levi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That did happen.
And we talk about the predisposition Levi had towards anyone specifically?
No.
I don't think
What
so.
about Mikasa?
No. That hasn't come up
Okay,
yet.
interesting.
No.
Cool. All right. Anyways, what do you guys...
So, there's a bunch of great characters in this book. Any favorite characters? I know we talked about our, like... I'm not going to say hate, but...
I like Mikasa and Levi. I like
Yeah.
Armin. Aaron is... I've warmed up to him, but he's more annoying.
I hate Aaron.
I will say...
I do think that is unpopular.
Sure.
Amongst even what happens next.
I like, Daniel, your description of Aaron, looking at him through the lens of like a subversion of the shonen hero, young shonen hero.
Man, so
he's got the hot
I have to
headed
say it. He is like a combination of the worst parts of Krillin and like the little bits of Gohan.
Well, I was about
like
to say it's
Piccolo,
very Gohan.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Gohan with the annoying side of Krillin.
Well, and I think there's a lot of I didn't see Krillin, but I do know what you're saying because Krillin freaks out a lot and Aaron freaks out a lot.
Right.
I see a lot of Gohan, and Gohan's like
Gohan's also like 5 years old.
yes,
you know,
and Gohan.
not teenage
like,
Gohan.
Yes, Gohan ends up with his whole like when pressed he can reach unheightened levels of power, which Aaron has a similar thing, but he doesn't really do that.
No,
He doesn't really rise to the occasion.
In my opinion, he gets worse. In the
I
next
see a
bits,
lot
but-
of, and I'm Hunter x Hunter obsessed. I see a lot of like an inversion of Gon a lot from Hunter x Hunter, and I don't know if that's intentional at all. I mean, I know Hunter x
No,
Hunter.
I think he'd be the dude
but...
in the suit.
No, he's Leorio.
I feel like
I love Leorio, though.
I hate Leorio.
Leorio's great.
Oh, he's so annoying, dude.
But maybe if Leorio was the center of the story, maybe and younger, maybe that would be.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. It's like, come on, I don't want to hear Leorio's perspective. Gon is like a purist and noble and like very, very like straight laced in that.
But that's what I mean.
But I will say that, like,
inversion.
if Gon had watched his mother get eaten by a Titan in front of him,
maybe it's different.
I don't know. Read the next bit. You tell me what. We'll circle back. We'll circle back because
I agree with Mikasa, Levi, Armin.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I was gonna say, I feel very confident now. One of the things with the manga that I think it's an advantage watching the anime is I couldn't tell which character was which a lot of the time because they are wearing the same clothes, and Levi and Aaron especially like look basically the same.
Yeah,
like
Levi just has the 1,000-yard stare.
Yes,
the whole time.
he's got kind of a different face.
That's so crazy. They look so different to me.
I know. Well, and he's got
like Levi's
got a broader chin.
Levi's
it's
tiny,
different, and he's smaller. But
he's like probably a whole foot shorter.
In some panels, you can't tell his height. So like,
yeah,
you can. In certain scenes, it's very obvious, and it's more obvious later on. But when he's first introduced, there's like a second where you're like, which one is this?
So Levi to me is literally Colonel Mustang. Like they are the same character.
Interesting.
They are the same exact character. I can't actually. If I was to draw them both and had the ability, they would be the same, just wearing different
I feel
suits.
like Levi is much more competent than
Mustang.
No, wait. My bad. I started thinking Armstrong.
Oh,
I was like, really?
Where are you going with this?
Are
Sam?
you sure?
Nope. No, those are two super different.
I
think Freeburn and Sailor Moon are the same character.
I mean that's not maybe totally insane. I don't know, but that's less insane than Armstrong and Levi, which I was trying to be very generous.
Levi, seriously,
no, Levi and Mustang makes sense.
We could do like if we had the ability to put them up right now. Levi and Armstrong almost are even drawn the same. They have the same hair.
Yeah.
Like I think
he's
Levi,
kind of got it.
Very similar archetype.
He's
not,
on the
not,
good.
Sorry, not Armstrong. Mustang.
Yes, Mustang.
Yeah.
But he's on. They're both on Mustang and Levi are on the good team. But they also have their own agenda, and it's usually pulling in the same way. But then it's not. But not always.
Yeah.
So there's a whole thing there.
Yeah, and they're both like slightly overpowered.
Sure.
In certain settings,
Levi's like the most skilled warrior. That
there is.
Seen. Yeah, absolutely. But
besides maybe the old general guy.
Yeah. It's it's been a lot of fun as the story's developed, and we've only mentioned it as details get revealed about the world. It gets much more interesting, and I feel like maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. I feel like I wish they had like drip feed or hinted at things, but that being said, they maybe hinted at more in hindsight, and that they're just hard to pick up on in a Gene Wolfian way without being aware of them. So I don't know.
And there's your Gene Wolfe reference for the episode.
I will say when you guys see the next part, you're gonna be like, oh, okay. Like, yeah.
All right. Fun question. If you personally became a Titan,
oh gosh,
what, based on the specialized Titans that we have encountered, what would your Titan abilities be, or what Titans would you be more like?
It depends on how acclimated I am with the abilities the Titans have.
Well, let's say you've got a fairly good handle on it.
I mean, the founding Titan, straight up, the coordinate, like to have the ability to shape memory and command every other Titan to do whatever it is I wanted. Like, yeah, there's no other Titan.
Well, okay, let's set that Titan aside.
Yeah.
Then, if you're just one of the other kind of Titans, you're not like the Uber Titan.
Oh yeah, gotcha. I mean, the Colossal sounds pretty great. He's the biggest one there is, but with that, it's like hard to move around.
Yeah, or see anything. I do kind of feel like that's probably what I'd be like.
Colossal,
and I don't even mean I don't know if I'd want to be, but
I mean, the female Titan.
I'd probably be the female Titan.
What are you
that
trying
or
to,
the
what,
big,
are you trying to tell us something right
that
now?
or the big flaming blob Titan?
Yeah. So the Beast Titan is pretty tight.
The Beast Titan's amazing. That's
Beast
a
Titan's
different
probably my favorite.
The
Beast,
projectile.
I mean, if I could choose, I would probably be the Beast Titan. But I feel like probably the Colossal. You know, again, if I'm picking one for Steven, Armored Titan makes a lot of sense to me. But you know,
yeah.
I was gonna say Armored Titan is probably my that would be my gut. Chest hair wise, I'm well on the way to
Beast
Titan.
Yeah, for sure.
But
how well are you at throwing projectiles?
not super great.
Because that's his main.
Work on the throwing.
Fair. I'm good at
Well,
shooting
guns.
stuff. I'm good at hitting
that's the
stuff,
same.
but,
Yeah, guns.
yeah.
That's true.
But I was better at catching than throwing.
That's amazing.
So,
Well, should I do my? Can I do my theory?
I would
on
love
the
to hear
link
it.
or
Yeah,
the-
let's do
please
it.
do. Yes.
Link it
So
up.
these are again major spoilers. Not major spoilers for Attack on Titan, but this incorporates the very end of Uzumaki, which I think we've only hinted at. But when we get to the end of Uzumaki, it's revealed that basically they've gone to the edge of town. Time's moving quicker there. They come back in. The entire town has literally become a spiral of buildings heading toward the center of the town, which is the lake, which when they finally get to the center has opened up to this spiral stone staircase, which also was very berserk when they're going down to Griffith's
Absolutely.
abode. I also felt like his art style is very
Very
style
berserk, yeah.
is very
Yeah,
similar.
he's got to be
Gotta
a
be.
massive fan of Kentaro Miura.
Gotta be. But finally they get it. It's revealed there's huge spiral architecture under this town. And Suichi and Kyrie are there. Suichi's like wasting away finally at this point. He falls. She gets down to him. She finds him. They finally just basically give up. They like has happened a few other times in the show or the manga. They lay down, people spiral together. There's several other times.
Yeah, we see one other kind of the Romeo and Juliet
story where they spiral together like snakes. And then they just kind of admit defeat. There's this implication that this has happened before, maybe 100 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, maybe, who knows, but they imply that in this unknown time horizon, this has happened untold times before in this place where this place becomes the spiral. And then it crescendos, and which is what's happening to them then, and then it fades away. And so the implication is that this has both happened again many times and will continue to happen. There's also the idea that maybe someone built this at some point, but who knows? They have no idea what the purpose is. They can't even speculate, but this is implied. And then at that point, basically, when that happens, the story just ends. And I feel like, obviously, it's like just telling you this. You've seen all this. You've seen the deconstruction. It's interesting that we do see there's a Jack-in-the-Box boy who becomes a Jack-in-the-Box. There's the boy that's always late who becomes a snail. So you see how people's proclivities and failures become externalized. And this happens in other ways where other people's failings like lead them into failing. But we see with this spiral that this town was doomed. People can't escape. There's like literally nothing they can do. You are just trapped by the unfortunate reality that you exist in this town with this spiral thing underneath it. So the implication is that you are trapped in this cosmic horror, and literally there's nothing you can do. The most dignity you can have is to gently rail against it so that you retain your individuality, but also in the end just sort of let go in it. And that's like the best hope we have. And I feel like there's, again, I don't know how much he was just writing something to be kind of odd and eccentric, but I feel like he's trying to make a statement on existing in the world and the way we have to just I mean, obviously, like, we don't control what comes before us. We don't control what comes after us. Like, we are just all in these patterns of history. It's like
it's kind of a bizarre and an Eastern flavor of stoicism.
Yeah, almost. Similarly, but differently, in Attack on Titan, and I'm thinking we'll be able to revisit this as the story develops. We come to realize where in Uzumaki, the obsession of the spiral and this cyclical violence is like, it's very personal and very cosmic, like is the thing. In Attack on Titan, we get the implication that there's this story that's going on, obviously, and this is true of all stories to some degree, but these characters are trapped in this story where all that's come before them, which is not known well, has trapped them in this story, and that they're stuck in now. And so, like the same idea that you are trapped by the history that precedes you, that you're not really aware of until it's too late. The interesting thing reading this, like, they're often scheming and making plans, and they have no idea what's going on. Right. They're battling Titans. They don't know what the Titans can do. They're like, it's like lost before they even start, even though they comport themselves well. It's the same idea, but turned political and societal, of being trapped in the story of history and all that have came before you. It's interesting. They're actually kind of the same story, just told in different ways, of being trapped in the story of history and all that came before you, because the characters, I feel like, in both these stories actually have very little agency. The characters actually in Attack on Titan have very little agency.
Not much they can do,
There's not much they can do.
Well, especially
they're stuck behind these walls.
At this point in the story, like, we don't know if there is literally anything that they can do.
Yes, and I'm guessing there will be development, unlike Uzumaki, which is confined and ends. I do think there will be development in this in Attack on Titan. In a different way, but maybe there will be development. I don't know if it will be like, and people do have agency. It might be like, and people just don't at all. Like, that might be the message. I'm not confident, but I do believe it's going to develop. But it's a very interesting. It to me, they're very, very similar stories, where I feel like, as opposed to that, almost in total opposite to that, both Hunter x Hunter and Full Metal Alchemist are about how you control your fate and your destiny, and you can take on the world. And in Full Metal, you can take on the political machinations and overcome and do all these things. And Hunter x Hunter, like, you can overcome your past. Although I forgot to mention this last week, Hunter x Hunter, the best example. I forgot. I'm really so mad I forgot to mention this, that now I'm thinking of it. I'm going to talk about it. Hunter x Hunter is the story of a dad who said, "I'm going out for cigarettes," and never came home. And then the son being like, spending his entire life trying to figure out what's so great about cigarettes.
and kind of finding the answer.
He's like, cigarettes are dope.
Cigarettes are awesome.
It's like, man, I knew it. He was onto something.
That's funny.
But that's awesome. That's a phenomenal description.
It's basically it. But similar thing in that world. You have agency, your things, and again, they buck up into things they can't control in that, especially in the arc we're reading right now. Not everything is possible, but human agency and what you do and make yourself is a whole big part of that. These stories are not. They're claustrophobic. They're you're trapped. you are stuck. It's very interesting. I'm really curious to see how we see some minor catharsis. In a lot of it's interesting where a lot of times I actually enjoy horror stories because a lot of horror stories, most horror stories even, have pretty happy endings. They defeat the thing, or there's a revealing.
Yeah.
Most people die, but they get away. This story was really not like that.
Yeah.
It was like
everyone is just consumed.
Yeah.
They do have some. They have our two mains have the most dignity of anyone else that has
They find
died.
some peace.
They find some peace
by succuming.
and sort of accepting
I guess we gotta
it.
like spiral out with this thing.
But they are together.
They are together, and they don't go out on their own terms, but they do. They sort of relent and don't. It's this weird mix of they struggle against, but not. It's honestly the two things where like the two versions of this were shown in Uzumaki are there's the obsession of the father and other characters where they become obsessed with the spirals. Then there's
drag other people down with them.
Yes, and then there's the mother who their
so
overwhelming
scared,
fear of the spiral also leads them down that path.
Yep.
There's the middle lane of resisting, and Suichi does also become obsessed, but differently than his mother, where he's not cutting his fingers off and things like that. He's avoiding, but it's in a more different way. Although his own avoidance ends up making him a recluse and everything.
Yeah.
It ends up working out for him vaguely. I'm curious how Attack on Titan is going to differentiate itself, if at all, from that, where characters in the world that we're seeing, will they be able to impact the future that they're a part of, or are they stuck in the same patterns that have come before it? That's what I'm curious to see. Do we continue on that same path, or do we veer off?
That's a phenomenal connection. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. I obviously love Uzumaki. I will read it countless more times. And I am thoroughly enjoying Attack on Titan.
I am too.
It has surpassed my expectations. It's a phenomenal series. I think you had mentioned at one point when we started reading this that this was Hajime's Isayama's first manga.
I believe it is.
And so to see the art at the beginning, which I keep harping on because it's important to me, but at the very beginning, it's nothing special. Sometimes it's good, but it's pretty rough. But
yes,
to see
it gets a lot better.
But knowing that's their first
attempt
at it, it's like it's spectacular.
Yes.
And then
no.
Track
and the art's not bad, but there is a
compared to what other things that we've read.
Yes,
it's not as good. It's not as polished.
Yes,
but getting to track the progression and in skill.
Yes.
Of the storytelling and the complexity of the story and the detail of the art. I love it, and this is another series that, of course, I'm super excited to finish, and then one that I will be revisiting frequently.
Yeah. Interesting on maybe a nice little final note. Uzumaki, this makes sense in because I hadn't actually realized this till I was thinking about it. I know Attack on Titan reaches out to a lot of people that don't like anime as much. It has a broader appeal than a lot. I think because there aren't any chibi characters.
Sure.
There's no cutesy anything. It doesn't. Everything else we've read has cutesy.
A little bit. Yeah.
Even Berserk has a little bit.
Berserk has a lot of it actually.
To counteract how
it does
truly disturbingly.
Well, and that is an anime and a manga classic trope of having a cutesy thing and silly characters and people being outside, and I think it totally works in Berserk.
You got to have a palate cleanse.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's too much.
Well, and honestly, I think I actually think I would. It's funny where I know a lot of people balk at that. I actually think Attack on Titan is missing it at times.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just because that lighthearted thing is what I like. One of the things I actually really like about anime in general.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's also it's much heavier, even though it's still a shonen and for a younger age, because it doesn't do that. It I will say it suits the story they're telling.
Has the one girl that loves potatoes.
That is pretty
the
silly.
overeating girl, yeah.
But even then,
like,
I don't think we don't get the crazy faces.
No, it doesn't have the little kawaii
And there's
face
nothing. There's nothing cute. There's no like.
Nobody's falling
There's
down.
not a round cat or like a, whatever thing.
It's
it
not
would
the kawaii titan.
No.
Yeah.
which there are some baby titans, but they're horrific.
Yeah. They're worse.
Yeah.
Great.
They're worse, yeah.
So, but yeah, it's interesting. But Uzumaki's the same, which honestly, it being so short and contained, I get why there's no silly.
Well, and the horror element too. I think
Absolutely,
it's just
it makes
a different
sense
genre.
that there's not. It like I can imagine how you would maybe do it in there and it be okay.
Make
but
Uzumaki cutesy.
like
Come on, we need like a kitty or something.
it's like a cat. It's like a cat that turns into the snail and then it's like.
I mean, there is a twisted sense of humor to certain
Oh,
things
for sure,
about it.
for sure, for sure.
But yeah,
but
there's
not,
nothing.
Not that.
There's not the cute thing.
Not the cute.
No.
Yeah,
there's no puck or like fairy in this one.
Well, and there's like never like there's also never the like classic anime like again the face gets big and then they like do like the streaming tears,
the Ed getting called
the yelling,
short
or the snot nose, all that stuff. That's just there's none of that. There's none of that in either of these.
No.
So.
That's right. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
And I think that's why. I think that stuff in anime is why a lot of people like can't do it.
Yeah.
Which I think is why. I think that's why Attack on Titan
very
has
mainstream almost.
It has a broader appeal.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, manga's great. Love. I'm thoroughly enjoying everything that we've been reading. So
same.
This has been part 2 of our manga recaps of what we've been reading.
Yes.
Looking forward to doing more in the future. This has been another episode of the Under Towers podcast. I'm Steven.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Sam.
And if you've enjoyed tonight's episode, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave us some comments, let us know what you're thinking. It's free for you, and it helps us all with the algorithm. Listen to Hole Dweller. He does the music that you hear at the beginning and the end of these episodes. Listen to Horsebread. Give us a like on Instagram and TikTok. And we will see you on the next episode. Love y'all. Bye.